Welcome. In this video, we are going to draw a simple 2D part. In a previous video, we learned how to draw lines, rectangles, circles, and arcs in FlowXpert. In this video, we use these tools to create a very simple shape. For this demonstration, we will first open an existing file to see what the completed shape will look like. The file we're going to use has the scdoc extension. The scdoc extension shows that this part was drawn using the SpaceClaim CAD engine used by FlowXpert. The simple example file is a 2D drawing, but it is important to recognize that when importing drawings, FlowXpert may default into a 3D view as it is done here. Notice that the mode tool selected is the 3D mode, even though the structure tree shows us that our drawing is composed only of lines and arcs. Notice also that the sketch grid is not visible. If this were a drawing we had saved and we wanted to continue working on it in 2D, we would need to return to sketch mode. Let's do that now. After clicking the sketch mode tool, notice that the mouse pointer has a small crosshatch pattern next to it. This allows us to select a sketch plane. Since we are working on a 2D flat part, simply click anywhere on the design view. Now we are in sketch mode and we could, if we wished, modify this part. But we want to use this part as a pattern and draw it from scratch. So let's start a new design. Select File, New Design. Click the Plan View tool. Now we are ready to start drawing. Notice the two tabs at the lower left of the design view. We can toggle back and forth to see if we have drawn the part correctly. Before we start drawing, let's be clear. There are many different ways to draw a part. In this video, we are not worried about showing the best way to draw our example part. Our goal here is to show how the tools work together. Let's zoom out to look at our part. We see that it is bounded by a 2 by 4 inch rectangle with the lower left corner at the coordinates of 1 inch away from the origin in both the X and Y directions. There are a few ways we can tell the size and location of our example part. A simple way is to move the mouse around and look at the mouse cursor position displayed in the status bar. This is a quick way to do a sanity check, but it's not very accurate. A second way is to use the sketch grid. In this case, the part is lined with the grid. Each grid square is 1/8 of an inch or 0.125 inches. By counting the number of grid squares, we can determine the size of each feature. Again, this is not a very accurate method and it can be very tedious. The most accurate way to measure something is to click on the Measure tab. With the Measure tool, we can click on features to get size information. If we hold down the Control key, we can select the two outermost arcs and determine the overall size of the part. Clicking on one of the inner arcs will show the radius of the arc drawn. Let's begin drawing our part by returning to our Design tab and using the Rectangle tool. We hover over the origin and press the Shift key. Using the Tab key, we enter a value of 1 inch in each parameter box and press the Enter key. This locates the lower left corner of our rectangle. We enter in 4 and 2 inches for the X and Y dimensions and press the Escape key after we have the dimensions locked in. We have now drawn a bounding rectangle for the part. Let's use the trimetric top view to zoom in on the rectangle. Oops. Now we will add 2 1-inch diameter circles to the part. For the first circle, let's do the same construction trick where we hover over the corner of the part to define the center location of the circle. We move in 1 inch by 1 inch and draw a 1-inch diameter circle. For the second circle, let's take advantage of the grid by using Snap to Grid in the Options panel. Here we can see it's already checked. With Snap to Grid on, we can use the grid layout to our advantage. We snap to the right grid location and draw our second circle. But we made a mistake. If we make a mistake, we can click the Undo button and try again. Remember that the escape key exits the circle drawing tool. There, we have two circles drawn. Let's compare it to our example part. Let's zoom in on our example part to make them the same size. Let's press the escape key to clear the screen. There, now we can see how we're doing. We're getting closer. Let's use the sweep arc tool to round off each end. We place the arc center at the center of each circle and snap to the grid at the rectangle locations. At this point, we need to get rid of the rectangle corners. We will use the trim away tool to accomplish that. We click on the trim away tool, hover over the elements we want to remove, and click them away. Now let's see how our part looks compared to the example. Almost done. For the final feature, let's take advantage of the grid snap and trim away tool again. Here we draw two lines by snapping to the grid. Remember that double clicking finishes the end of the line. Now, of course, we could explicitly define each line if we could not use the grid. Remember, we can finish a line by pressing the escape key or double clicking. Now we'll use the trim away tool. Now let's compare it to our part. We can see that something doesn't look quite right. It looks like we've drawn the upper line too far down. Now, when we look at this final part, we realize we have made a mistake. The slot in the middle is just not right. It's too narrow. Now, we could undo all our last actions and redraw, but there's an easier way. Click on the Move tool and select the top line. A set of move arrows appears. Click and drag on the arrow pointing in the Y direction. Now we can enter in a dimension and move the line to where we want it. Notice how FlowXpert automatically takes care of all the other details. The Move tool is very powerful when it comes to modifying features. Now when we compare parts, we see that we have a perfect match. All of this was done with lines, rectangles, circles, and arcs, and several of the options and tools available in FlowXpert. Our final action is to save the drawing. We select File, Save, and we're going to use the SCDoc extension. In this case, we'll just save it to the desktop, and we'll click in a name. We'll call it Demo, and we'll click Save. And that's it. We've drawn a simple part to known dimensions and saved it. In the following video, we will use the Sequence tab to path the part we just drew.